Good morning, Dan and Amy. So yesterday, in an interview in Detroit radio, the Mildred Gaddis show, John Conyers, who has been a member of Congress since 1776, announced that...
No, it's 1964. Get the year right.
Yeah, rounding error. Announced that he is retiring, his word, effective immediately. And he's got a Conyers family member that he thinks should follow him, although some other Conyers family members are also interested, so we'll see how that plays out. But what did the esteemed congressman have to say?
Well, he made the phone call from his hospital bed, and was surprised to many. He said, people thought he was going to announce that he's not going to run again in 2018, but he said, no, today's the day.
Oh, yes, I'm in the process of putting my retirement plans together, and I will have more about that very soon.
And then she said, so you're retiring today? He said, yes, today's the day.
And he also added that nothing could tarnish his legacy. Nothing? Washington Post reporting. Have you heard this one? You probably haven't.
I haven't.
Washington Post is reporting. It wasn't they kind of buried this, but it's in the story, so give them credit for reporting on it. Courtney Morse, who was a 20-year-old intern for John Conyers 16 years ago. She's 36 now. So when she was 20, John Conyers was 72. She said to the Post that she quit her internship after Conyers drove her home from work one night, wrapped his hand around hers as it rested in her lap, and told her he was interested in a sexual relationship. When she rejected his advances, Moore said he brought up the then-developing investigation into the disappearance of former federal intern Chandra Levy. Moore saying he said he had insider information on the case. I don't know if he meant it to be threatening, but I took it that way. I got out of the car and ran.
Wow.
Nancy Pelosi, would you like to revise and extend your remarks? For more on this topic and Roy Moore and all things going on the Hill and associated with it, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Juan Williams, who's a columnist for The Hill, the outlet, and also, of course, Fox News contributor. Juan, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning. So, your reflections on John Conyers?
Well, so I know Conyers and think, of him in an iconic way, because I always thought John Conyers not only the longest-serving member of Congress, but, it's a fact that, things like the King holiday, John Conyers was so important. I mean, he was marching for voting rights way back, as Amy pointed out. He's been there since the 60s. So in those terms, you just think this is so sad. And then when I hear what Amy just reported from the Washington Post, I think, wow, this guy's off the rails. And then to your point, Dan, about legacy, his legacy is tarnished now. And I just think, boy, how sad. I didn't know this side of him. I think most people didn't. But if what these women are saying is true, and I think there's so many of them at this point, it's kind of, determinative for my feelings, at least, if not in the legal sense. It was right for him to retire, and you just wish that he had gone more quickly.
Do you think that, as Thomas Frank and others have made this point, Thomas Frank, a man of the left, that what we've seen from Hollywood, from some in the media, from some politicians, there's a certain sense that if I'm on the left, it entitles me to behave however I want without boundaries. That's essentially a point that kind of gives me that, to borrow a phrase or a word, privilege to behave like an animal. Or to be, licentious and lascivious. How do you react to that?
Well, I really don't know where that's coming from. I don't think this is partisan. I mean, right now in America, everything is, politics as sport, and you got to join one team or another. But boy, I think that's way wild off. I mean, I remember when John Tower was driving that stripper into the tidal basin. Or you think back, that's Wilbur Mills, I guess, and you think about Tower's misbehavior, or these things come. Harvey Weinstein on the left, Louis C.K. Bill Cosby. I don't see that this is about politics, but at the moment with Roy Moore out there, I think the right is looking for the opportunity to say, "Oh well, Democrats, you're hypocrites." But I think that's just a twist a distortion in the mirror of current day politics. And by the way, there's no comparison between taking off the clothes off a 14-year-old girl, as is alleged in the Moore case, and Franken grabbing some woman, groping some woman while he's taking a picture. There's just no comparison in my mind.
Well, speaking of Roy Moore, the polls have him up. We have President Trump going to Pensacola, so that's in the Alabama media market. Do you think Roy Moore is going to appear with him on Friday?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Both sides don't want to do anything that's going to excite the opposition, right? So you want to get your voters out, but not do anything that then riles up the other side. And so that's why the president's not going directly into Alabama, but he's going to a part of Florida very friendly to him. It'll be a big rally atmosphere. The question, as you put it, is, does Roy Moore show up? But if Roy Moore shows up, then does that really, excite the few Democratic voters, especially in minority and young people in Alabama, to come out because they're anti-Moore voters?
If Moore wins on Tuesday, does Moore become the whipping boy of the Democrats? Is that how you suspect they'll try and frame the 2018 midterms?
Oh, I don't think there's any question. I think it's a bigger problem for President Trump if Moore wins, because then he's going to be responsible for all the things that Moore says and does, and Moore's constant fighting with Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. And you also have already people talking about expulsion and ethics committee investigation. So that will just hang around Trump's neck. So that's kind of ironic, isn't it? That it's a bigger issue for Trump if Moore wins than if Moore loses. If Moore loses, it's just, he still has the majority in the Senate.
What about in the check that Jeff Flake wrote to Doug Jones' campaign? Do you think that was a good idea, bad idea?
Oh, I mean, look at what Mitt Romney had to say, Amy. Look at, not only Jeff Flake, but there's so many Republicans, but I think they would be categorized by many as establishment Republicans, led by Mitch McConnell, who said, "I believe the women," who are anti-Moore. And so all of that, I mean, that's the kind of friction I'm talking about that's going to be presented to President Trump if all of a sudden Roy Moore is his baby, and everywhere that Roy Moore goes, Daddy has to go too.
And so speaking about next year, and with the tax cuts seeming to be a passage of, signature on, seeming to be in the offing before Christmas, if the economy continues to grow at the pace it has the last couple of quarters, and you see perhaps even more growth and associated benefits at the micro level from macro growth, does that concern Democrats, you think, in terms of their ability to make compelling arguments in the midterms, particularly Democrat senators in red states, if the economy is humming along?
I think the economy is humming along right now. So, people can make arguments about, who's responsible and why is the market doing so well and why is unemployment so low and all the rest. I think for the moment, though, from what I hear from Democrats, they're excited to make the case that this tax package is not beneficial to the working class or the middle class, that it really all the money, all the benefits go to the rich and to corporations, and blow up the deficit, which used to be a Republican talking point. So, no, I think in terms of the economy, I don't think that'll be the issue. I mean, to my mind, the big issue is, what Time Magazine apparently is calling, the silence breakers, and all the talk about sexual harassment and all the talk about Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. I think that'll be the focus of the midterms.
Donald Trump came in second, by the way, for Time Person
of the
Year.
Great. Good to know. Yeah.
Just so you know.
This is like a student council election. So silly. So let me ask you this one, because you break from the orthodoxy of Democrats a number of issues we've talked about, like school choice.
Sure.
And so do you worry, from your perspective, about a Democrat Party that is moving left much faster than the country is moving left?
Yeah, well, in the short term, that's definitely a problem. I think Democrats have been overconfident in saying, oh, well, the demographics of the country are shifting and things will go our way, because what you saw in 2016 is, well, that's true in the cities, but it's not true for much of the rest of the country. So you see that big red map on election night. So to my mind, there's no question that younger, more racially mixed immigrant group is going far left. I don't think there's much doubt about it, Dan. But it's far left in terms of Republican politics on issues like, gun control or tax cuts. And at the moment, that's why the country is so deeply divided, because not only are they going farther left, but I think the driving, animating force in the Republican Party is taking the Republican Party farther to the right in terms of populist energy, Donald Trump, the Freedom Caucus in the House. I don't think there's any question we are a pretty divided nation.
He is Juan Williams, Fox News contributor, columnist for The Hill. His most recent piece, The Republican Party Has Divided America, as he was just describing. Juan, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great day, Dan and Amy.
You too.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news.